And good evening. We welcome you to another edition of the Central Florida Blitz. So we take a look back at Week 9 high school football in Central Florida and look ahead to Week 10. A lot to be decided this. Lots of district titles have been decided, and even more are coming up. And then, of course, next week, a week from this Sunday, we will announce the playoff pairings. Actually, we had our playoff show earlier. If you didn't see that, you can check that out as well. But Josh, another big week in Central Florida, and we are really getting down to the end here, where the games become bigger and bigger. It seems.
Yeah, and it's this is it's all or nothing now for a lot of teams here, Marty. And I'll tell you what, it's really what we've got sitting here looking at this week. It definitely is. There's some key games sitting there in Central Florida that is going to be it's all or nothing now for these teams, and you got to be able to win. You want to guarantee your chances of going into the second season. Guarantee that, be able to lock that in. You got to win here in the district play, and this is the final week of district action here, Marty. And with that said,
it's time for the Blitz Lines for Central Florida. Breaking news.
We'll have extended lines, and we'll talk more about the rankings here, and of course some different topics here tonight. We don't have a guest here for the Central Florida Blitz tonight, but we do have guests lined up for the Gulf Coast Blitz and North Florida Blitz coming up here later this evening. And of course, you saw in South Florida Blitz, we had Dr. Kevin Perry.
We did. That was from the athletic director of Hollywood Hills. They're about to celebrate 50 years since Hollywood Hills won the state title in football, the first in Broward County. But yeah, you can check that out as well. Archived at it's on Facebook. It's on Twitter as well as YouTube.
Yes, you go on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Florida HS Football. Hit that subscribe button and click that notification bell for notifications when anytime we upload videos or go live. That's the bestest way that you can support us here as we grow the channel here across on YouTube, and of course as we also stream here on Facebook and Twitter, or the platform they call X now. So
right, exactly. And we'll have our pick six as well coming up later on. We'll take pick six games from the Central Florida area, but let's start with our Blitz Lines, and we'll start at the top. The Mainland Bucks, they do it again. Wasn't easy against 2-5 Osceola, but Mainland with the shutout, 22-0. They're now 8-0.
Yeah, and it's been quoted by head coach Travis Rowland there at Mainland. And you know what, Travis Rowland we had on a couple of weeks ago, and Coach Rowland, not only is he a great coach, but he's even a better family man. But he also is humbled, and that humble, being able to be humble. When he cautioned his team that prior to playing Osceola is going to be the best 2-5 team in the team in the state you're going to see. And sure enough, Osceola did not let Mainland have it easy, as the score indicates, 22-0. Yes, it was shutout, but only putting 22 against Osceola, that's not a lot of points when you really look at it in terms of the amount of points that Mainland has been able to score against other teams this year. This is probably by far the lowest output of scoring that Mainland has had all season long.
Yeah, I believe it is, and you're right. But still, their defense bitches a shutout. So,
by the way, LJ McCray, the 5-star guy commit thing, he had his decision over the weekend. Where's LJ headed?
Gainesville,
to the University of Florida. Yes,
Florida. That's right. That was a big get for Billy Napier there to get McCray. So we'll see what he means to Florida the next few years, but. Go ahead.
Well, but I'm just saying, what could he mean for the Mainland Buccaneers for the rest of the season? Potential state title.
Could be. They almost won it last year. Won on the road, 3 straight road games in the playoffs, lost by 2 in the state championship game to Lake Wales. So, yeah, Mainland's got a chance, a really good chance to get that state title. Another team, though, that's 8-0, that's heading to a showdown or into a showdown with Mainland maybe next week. 2 undefeated teams. Lake Mary goes to 8-0. They win 49-21 at Apka. They roll over the Blue Darters, but they have a big game this week. Lake Mary travels to take on Seminole.
Yes, and this is going to be huge after basically dealing the blow for Apopka to be potentially anywhere near that district title. Lake Mary's like, so well, you know what? We're going to put the Blue Darters over here to the side, and now we got the fighting Seminoles of Seminole, and this is interesting because this is something that is known in the community there, especially in Seminole County. Seminole recognizes Lake Mary as their rival, but Lake Mary does not. Lake Mary recognizes Lake Brantley as their rival, but not Seminole. And it's very, very interesting. There's contention there in terms of that. But regardless of any of that, this is a huge showdown. This is always a big game every year when these two teams go at it between the Rams and the Fighting Seminoles. They do leave it all on the field. I mean, for whatever it is, these two teams leave it all on the field. But this is going to be a classic battle. This is going to be a classic showdown. This is going to be a game that, really at the end of the day, it is going to decide everything for District 4M2, which has been described as the District of Death. Apopka, obviously, it's slid back a little bit this year, but nonetheless, still been in it up until last week. I think at the end of the day, this is a game that, when we talk about it here in a little bit for the Pick Six, because it is one of the games on the Pick Six. It is to me, it's the biggest game of the week. It's the biggest game of the year in Central Florida, right there. These two teams going at it, because some people think Lake Mary could go around and make a run for the state title this year. A lot of people, think that this is Lake Mary's year. I mean, they got, Noah Grubbs, who is a sophomore quarterback, has just been lights out. I mean, it's huge. At the end of the day, it's not going to be easy come Friday night at San Seminole.
No, not at all. And Lake Mary, like I said, before they can get to mainland, they got to get past this game. So, yeah, it's going to be tough for Lake Mary to win this one, as you said. But, yeah, that's what we got to see Friday night. That'll be in our Pick Six.
And I'm pulling up the stats here on Noah Grubbs here real quick. This is eight games. This is what's in according to Max Preps, the statistics entered here, and I'm – of course, these ads that want to play, I don't like that when I go pull it up. But Noah Grubbs, 2,623 yards, 38 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. His QB rating is 131.3. That's a sophomore quarterback, by the way. I think, to be honest with you, and we'll talk about this here, later on during the next amount of shows, Marty. But there's a nice sophomore quarterback class that is coming up here. The 2026 class. Noah Grubbs, Trace Johnson. There's Sammy Mezick, Tohobalika. There's a nice group of sophomore quarterbacks in this state that we're going to be keeping an eye on here, and I think it's going to be really important to watch these guys as they come up. But Noah Grubbs leading that wave of sophomore quarterbacks, but Trace Buchholz not too far behind, and we'll talk more Trace in Florida 1. But Noah Grubbs again, 2,620 yards through 8 games.
Yeah, not bad at all. All right, let's move along to the Cocoa Tigers, who have no problem with their rival Astronaut. 63-0. Cocoa improves to 7-1. Yeah,
in Cocoa, they set up a showdown this week with Palm Bay for a district championship there in District 2 S12. And to be honest with you, I just don't think anybody's a match for Cocoa. I mean, again. And Coach Adam Franco, who is assistant coach there at Cocoa, he gives it every week, and I appreciate the praise, Coach. But I mean, I put when that happened, that game against St. Thomas Aquinas, I put Cocoa above, St. Thomas Aquinas, and they're still sitting there above them in terms of the Florida top 25, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit. But Cocoa, I just don't think anybody really is a match for Cocoa here for the rest of the regular season. Obviously, Palm Backledge next week for the Barbecue Bowl. I just don't see anybody getting the best of Cocoa at this particular point. I don't think Cocoa, in terms of, I think when we start looking at the playoff bracket, I think the biggest test that Cocoa will see in terms of their bracket, which is Region 3 and 2S, the biggest team I think that stands in the way will be South Sumner.
Okay, right. I would agree. South Sumter only one loss this year so far as to Hawthorne, and we'll actually talk about South Sumter coming up in the Gulf Coast region. But, I think you're right. That could be Cocoa's biggest challenge to make it to the state semifinal round. All right, back to Orlando. I wrote it this way. Jones beat Wekiva in a basketball game, 68-41. 68-41, a football score.
That's a football score. And I mean, did they put a basketball court out in the middle of the football field and start playing basketball instead? Say, hey, let's just decide to play hoops instead. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
I mean, that's what it sounds like. Sounds like a basketball game to me. 68-41. Boy.
But there's no defense here. And by the way, this is the first game for Wekiva since their head coach got dismissed, is what they're saying. He said the report from the Orlando Sentinel says he resigned. There's conflicting stories on that. And J.C. Carnahan reported there, the Orlando Sentinel, and basically, until he talked to Coach Schwartz, Jeremiah Rodriguez Schwartz, he was dismissed basically So Wakaiba's going to have a new head coach next season, but they're right now under interim leadership there. And Wakaiba, I just, Wakaiba, they know how to score points. Jones know how to score points. Obviously, they look at the scoreboard, but here the big thing, it's Jones. When it comes to things, you don't ever doubt Jones. The big things, Jones is sitting there. They're 5-3, but their 5-3 is a very impressive 5-3 when you look at their schedule. Look who they have played here so far this season. I mean, Coco's one of their losses right there. So I mean, Coco, Edgewater, who's 9-0 by the way.
Yeah, 9-0, and they're continuing to roll through the season so far. But yeah, Jones looks like they're getting better into postseason time, playoff time. We usually see Jones make a run. We've seen him get to the state semis, to the championship game. So we'll see if they do it again. And here's a game on the direct opposite spectrum of that 68-41 game. DeLand beating University 14-3 in a defensive slugfest. So DeLand Bulldogs, I wrote this wrong. DeLand clinches the 4S District 3 title, handing University its first loss of the season. Despite that, DeLand is still behind University in the regional rankings.
Yeah, and then you know what, Marty? I think that's a good break point here because we come back and we talk about that a little bit more here. We'll take a water break and talk about that a little bit more because honestly, I got some opinions about all that we didn't really get into in terms of in the playoff breakdown show because again it's the biggest head scratcher in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. All right, we'll take a 1 minute break for water. I'm going to have some of my own. And when we come back, we'll talk more about the Central Florida Blitz Lines, Pick 6, and the rankings coming up. You're watching the Central Florida Blitz with Marty Pallman and Joshua Wilson.
All right, welcome back here on the Central Florida Blitz. Josh Wilson, Marty Pallman, right over there, and Marty, as we kind of bring that back in, part two.
Breaking news, that's right.
But I know we left off at a good point here in terms of the playoff power rankings, as you alluded to before we went into the water break. The whole thing with about Orange City University still sitting there at number one. I think that's the biggest head scratcher of the whole entire week here in terms of the playoff power rankings when we talked about it on the show a little bit ago.
Yeah, because it's kind of hard to believe that you could. Well, I mean, it's their first loss of the season for University, and DeLand has 2 losses, but DeLand's 2 losses were to Mainland and to
Sanford Seminole.
Seminole. I mean, they can't. Nothing wrong with those 2 losses, really. DeLand wins the district title. They beat University head-to-head, and not only is DeLand not second, they're 4th behind University right now. So interesting, and University stays number 1 because the schedule strength that we talked about is tougher for DeLand.
It is, and that's the thing. It's really, really interesting to think about this. Is that why DeLand is not sitting there? But there's a game this week. And I'm kind of curious to see how Lyman does against Orange City University, especially coming off their first loss. Lyman is sitting there; they're outside looking in terms of their scenario in Class 3M region wide. The question there, I will talk about that in a moment. More in the moment is what does that effect of that game have? And that, of course, that's on our pick 6 as well. There,
yeah, we will have that game. You're right, and then we also have DeLand, who has clinched the district title, but they'll have New Smyrna Beach this week, and that's one of the reasons why DeLand clinched the district title was Spruce Creek knocked off New Smyrna Beach, and that was the last team that had a chance to beat DeLand with them beating University. So the Bulldogs of DeLand really starting to get it going as we head towards the playoffs. Rick Darlington's got that team playing well, but their defense obviously had on the University of 3 points is pretty tough.
Yeah, you're right. No, and that's that's a thing. And Darlington, he has his team find ways to win games, and it's that's what Rick Darlington does. He's done it, at multiple schools here in Florida. He found way. I think Rick Darlington's first head coaching job, I believe, was Eustis, and so Eustis and Apopka. He's had some time away out of the state, of course, up in Alabama, and then of course also in Georgia at Valdosta. But Rick Darlington, most famous known for Apopka. But he's doing what he's done well and and he's doing it right there at the land right now. So
that's right. All right. Finally, another undefeated team in Central Florida, Winter Park. No problem with Colonial, 62-6. Winter Park Wildcats remain unbeaten, and they are in a good position going into the playoffs.
Yes, they are, and of course they've got Timber Creek this week, who sometimes can throw up a challenge, but they got to beat Timber Creek to clinch that district. That's the thing. That is the huge task at hand, is beating Timber Creek, and but for the Winter Park Wildcats, I think the thing for me about Winter Park, and this is why I have a tough time moving them up and higher in the rankings and for them, it's just that they're so. Their schedule is kind of, in terms of it's not as strong. If they had not canceled the game against Brunswick in week 2, which when we were dealing with Hurricane Idalia, I think that would have been a different story if they had gone up. But since Brunswick was more in the path of that game, Brunswick and Winter Park, they just agreed that it's better not for Winter Park to come traveling all the way up to Brunswick, not knowing how the weather was going to be towards the end of the week.
Right. Well, yeah, and you're right. If they had played that game, he would have probably learned a lot more about Winter Park.
Absolutely.
Brunswick is a quality opponent, but I don't know. Winter Park, we've seen them get into the postseason before and get knocked out, so it's kind of, it just depends on who they get to play. I mean, that area is just loaded with teams, especially in the higher classification. There are 4M in Orlando and that Atlanta area, Central Florida area.
No, you're absolutely right there, Marty. And that's the big thing, is that it's at the end of the day, it's these teams that are in Central Florida. I feel like at the end of the day, there is going to be at least one state champion from Central Florida. I mean, you look at some of the other team though that we haven't mentioned, here, but we did mention in the playoff show was that, like an Orlando Christian Prep is sitting there at 8-1 on the season. There's a couple other teams that are sitting there in terms of, that are 1 or 2 lost teams in the mix. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, we will see what happens with these teams going forward, because at the end, this is it. As you said, you mentioned at the start, this is the nitty gritty.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the announcement of the teams that make the postseason and their matchups will be coming up a week from this Sunday. We'll have a special coming up looking all around the state on Sunday, November 5th. So we'll look forward to talking about that as well. But that's it for the Central Florida Blitz Lines. Time to take a look at the rankings from FloridaHSFootball.com. And
yes,
the teams
sir.
from Central Florida that are involved in that. Josh has the new rankings just came out today.
Yes, indeed. And of course, looking at some of the teams here, of course, we got Mainland sitting there at number 8, Edgewater number 9, Lake Mary at 11, who is the top team there in Class 4M. And then, Coco's sitting there at 6. They're the top team in terms of all this in the Central Florida Blitz. So Coco's 6, Mainland 8, Edgewater 9, Lake Mary 11, and then we find Sanford Seminole sitting here at 14. So a battle of 2 top 15 teams this week with Lake Mary and Seminole, and then getting a little further down, that's pretty much what we've got sitting there in terms of the region here. But I'll tell you, Marty, this is going to be fascinating here, as we said. Again, these teams that are really competing hard, of course. When I look at Class 3, he's in there. Jones not too far sitting there in 3M, right there at number 9 there in the classification there. And of course, looking at a couple of other teams here, in terms of 4M, it's Lake Mary 1, Sanford Seminole 3, and then Winter Park is number 5 there in Class 4M. And then, of course, Orlando Olympia enters into 4M rankings this week at number 10. So, again, a lot of teams sitting here that, playoffs are on the line. Some of them are already in. Some of them are almost guaranteed in. Some of them can just lock themselves into that playoff spot this week by just winning their district title.
Right, exactly. The easiest way to do it. So we'll see what those teams do. All right. Well, you know what that music means. It means it's time for the Pick 6.
No, absolutely, Marty. Pick 6 time here in terms of everything that we got going on. And first game up on the board tonight is Lyman at Orange City University. And I'll tell you what, this is one of those games that, Lyman needs this game more than University does right this second. I mean, we just talked about it. University sitting there at number 1. Lyman is on the outside looking in there in Region 1 in Class 3M. And, the big thing for that is that, for Lyman, they really need that win. They need they need to basically win out, in my opinion. They're at the number 8 seed in that region. Wakaiba's last game is Popka, not the next week. So that poses a question. Can Lyman afford to lose this game but win next week to finish out the season? I don't know. They need this win. But University, I think, how do they respond coming off a 14-3 loss to Land? That's the biggest question I have here for the Titans. But I think they will respond well. I think they, this is a home game. They will beat Lyman. So I'm going with Orange City University here in this one.
Yeah, I think the Titans are going to rebound as well. Coming off their first loss of the season, they still have a number 1 seed to play for, and want to have one of their most successful seasons in their football program history. So I would take University Titans. I think they're going to get a win as well against Lyman. As we move on to, we're going to go over to the Space Coast area, Palm Bay and Cocoa, and this is always a good rivalry game.
Yeah, with Palm Bay and Cocoa, this is a little good rivalry game here, especially for the district title. But Palm Bay, Cocoa has just really been playing, their best football here, and I just don't know. It's like I've alluded to already. I just don't know if anybody can catch Cocoa here at this point in their district, but what there was remaining on the schedule, or even in terms of the playoffs until they really look at the regional finals. I just don't know if anybody can catch Cocoa, and I'm sticking with the Tigers, and that's my story.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to go against Cocoa either right now, the way they're playing. And coming in off a 63-0 win over Astronaut. I know it'll be tougher this week. Palm Bay's a better team, but yeah, I would stick with Cocoa as well at home.
All right. So Marty we're going to be either 0 for 2 or 2 for 2 here so
that's
far.
Right. All right. Next game up, we mentioned DeLand as they are back home this week after beating University last week, hosting New Smyrna Beach, who got to a really good start, but the Barracudas have kind of faltered a little bit, losing to Spruce Creek last week, and they are out of the district race at this point.
They're out of the district race, but New Smyrna Beach, don't say it's all over, because New Smyrna Beach is all sitting there still looking for a playoff spot. They're still in the mix. They're still in that top 8 in their region. New Smyrna Beach can still impact DeLand here, even though DeLand has the district title. How can they impact DeLand? By winning this game and messing up the playoff power rankings. That's what they can do here. And but this is at Spec Martin. And my question for Johnny Wilkinson's New Smyrna Beach Barracudas, can they respond to an overtime loss to Spruce Creek from last week? That's the big question I have, and I'm not so sure about that, especially to the fact that DeLand's riding high, winning that district title. But does DeLand let it get to their head? That's my other big question. So there's 2 big questions in that. But I know how Rick Darlington is. We all know how Rick Darlington is. We know what kind of coach Rick Darlington is. We also know what kind of coach Johnny Wilkinson is. And this is a battle of epic coaches here, by the way, and of legendary coaches, both up on both sides of the sideline. But I think given all that, I am going with DeLand here at home.
Well, New Smyrna Beach needs this game too. I mean, right now they are in the 7th spot in Region 3 for 4S, and they've fallen 3 spots since last week, but they need this game, but I don't think they're going to get it either. I'm with you again. Once again, I'll take DeLand. DeLand's a hot team right now at home. I take them to win this game as well.
And of course, Doug P would be proud of that one too, taking that pick.
Mr. DeLand, that's true. That's right. Hopefully he's watching. All right, we head back towards the Space Coast, Rockledge and O'Galley. I love the name. O'Galley, Eallie.
By the way, I got a little factoid here for you. O'Galley was once its own city before it merged with the city of Melbourne back in the late 60s.
That's where the name came from, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, O'Galley High was part of the city of O'Galley, and then the 2 cities merged. So now
O'Galley
it's no the remnants of O'Galley still exist in names of buildings and schools. O'Galley High School, but this is for our district there. This is here. Both teams are clearly in the playoff picture here But O'Galley has been hot this year. The Commodores have been really, really strong. But I mean, Rockledge has played a tough schedule. But has that tough schedule enough, or did O'Galley not schedule hard enough and Rockledge gets them at home? I like what O'Galley's doing, and I'm going to go with O'Galley here in this one. And O'Galley gets the district title here, in my opinion.
I'm going to go with the Rockledge Raiders on the road here. I think that they get this done. You're right. They're literally number 2 and number 3 in Region 3. O'Galley's second, 7-1. Rockledge 5-3 is third. But I think that's the one difference we're going to see is Rockledge that brutal schedule.
Oh yeah,
and for that reason, I'm going to take Rockledge to win and clinch the district title there. So,
wow. All right, we got one difference here tonight.
Back to Orlando we go. West Orange at Olympia.
So last week, West Orange and Dr. Phillips was a very close battle. Dr. Phillips getting the win, setting up West Orange and Olympia. Olympia has not clinched the district, which actually, by the way, the loss to Dr. Phillips only gave West Orange their first loss in district play. So hence why Olympia has not clinched the district yet. So West Orange still can have a factor here, potentially throw this district into a tiebreaker situation. And that's the big question. But right now, Olympia has been playing really solid football. They only have 2 losses on the season. One of their losses is obviously the Popka by 2 points. Okay, that's nothing to sneeze at. I'm going to go with Olympia here in a close battle because West Orange is knowing to provide close battles. And as again, result, Dr. Phillips' West Orange game last week, close battle. Even though West Orange was on the opposite side of the scoreboard and what they wanted to be coming into this game against Olympia. But I'm going with Olympia to close out the district and win the district title and secure their playoff spot.
Yeah, Olympia Titans, I think, as well, will get this done at home. They've had a really good year with the exception of a setback against Apopka. And, again, just like the University Titans, the Olympia Titans will get it done. I like Olympia as well. All right, last game.
Yes.
Lake Mary and Seminole. This is a game we talked about earlier. This is probably the game of the week.
Game of the year, maybe. Game of the century. No, not game of the century, but
yeah, let's be careful with those.
But game of this year for teams and for anyone in Central Florida, this is the game. This is the game. I know these 2 teams have probably had this game circled on the calendar since last season. When they for the rematch. For a district championship. This is for all the marbles. Lake Mary and Sanford Seminole, both 3-0 in District 4 and 2. This is the district of death, as we call it. This year, in terms of, Apopka's taking a slide back. Lake Brantley has been struggling. Evans is that 4th team. Actually, when you look at the rankings, Marty, in terms of those teams in that region, there's 4 teams from District 4 and 2 sitting there in the playoff mix. How about that?
Yeah, Lake Mary, Seminole, then you have Apopka
and Evans.
That's true. 4 of the 8 are right there.
So this is what makes fun. This is why it's fun having the playoff power rankings, because not all districts are created equal. Not all teams are created equal.
Right.
And when we look at this district, this is huge. 4 of the 8 playoff spots maybe coming teams going out of District 4 and 2. That's huge right there. And speaking in terms of the playoffs, but this is the big game, and this is huge. Lake Mary, I like Lake Mary. I also like Sanford Seminole. A lot of people think this is Lake Mary's year. I'm just not sure where to go with this one because I want to take Sanford. I want to take Seminole, but I also take Lake Mary, and this is just a hard one. And
take a tie.
I don't know.
No tie.
Can I take a draw here, please?
No ties. No ties in football.
But I'm just not sure where to go with this one. What are you thinking, Marty?
This is a tough one. I agree. I think I'm going to go a road game, but I think I'm going to go with Lake Mary. I think you're right. I think it might be their year, and they sure are playing like it. And they really haven't had a close game. I mean, you look at these teams they've already eaten this year. They beat Mandarin, who's 4th in their region, by 20. They beat Apopka by 28. I mean, this is a dominant team. I know Seminoles lost 2 games, but those losses were to who did Seminole lose to?
Seminole has lost to I think it's Cocoa. Cocoa's one of their losses.
Right.
Cocoa's one of their losses, and then of course, obviously to
yeah, those aren't bad. But
and I'm trying to. Sorry, my mind is sitting here like Cocoa and Now I'm losing my mind here for a moment here. Sorry, guys, but it's a thing. Trying to pull it up here, and in terms of there we go. Hopefully we'll get it here in a moment. All right, here we go. The two losses are to Treasure Coast and to Cocoa. Those are the two losses. Sorry, because they played. Again, Sanford Seminoles played such a tough schedule. It's like, okay, wait a second. Who did they lose to, and who did they beat? Then of course, if their two losses are Treasure Coast and Cocoa, that's really says it all right there.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm taking Lake Mary. I am. I'm going to go with the Rams. I think they're going to win this game.
Wow. All right. I'm thinking we're going to sit there and we're going to be either we're either going to we have one difference, I think, in our picks this week.
Oh, you got Lake Mary. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking Rockledge. That's right. Yeah. But do we have anything to say before we sign off? Oh, we do. Okay.
And we're going to go back to it. Christopher Like did say that about the Jones
basketball on grass.
Yes, right. Indeed. The Jones Wakaiva game, that right there was definitely basketball on grass there, Marty. I definitely agree with what Chris has to say there on that one. Of course, Jeremy Bell, who was an assistant coach at Treasure Coast before becoming the head coach at Port Orange Atlantic, which, by the way, Port Orange Atlantic could go secure a district title this week with a win over Pearson Taylor. And you know what? He thinks Treasure Coast could actually end up beating. By the way, he was talking about the Treasure Coast loss, which, by the way, we talked about in the South Florida Blitz, Treasure Coast and Vero Beach. But you're right, Jeremy. That is the thing. The Treasure Coast. I was trying to find who in my mind who the losses were for Seminole, and that's it. So there you go. And Josh Latour says go with Vito. Vito sitting there looking pretty good in the playoffs as well. So.
All right, well, we are out of time for this edition of the Central Florida Blitz. Coming up, we will have the Gulf Coast Blitz and the North Florida Blitz still this evening. And we will talk to you again next Tuesday night at 8:15 for the Central Florida Blitz. Next week will be interesting. We'll start looking ahead to the playoffs just a little bit. So for Joshua Wilson, I'm Marty Pallman saying so long. You've been watching the Central Florida Blitz. Good night.